Okay, so welcome everybody to the Docs update, Docs project update session. I am Petr Kovács. I am the Queen's PTL of the documentation project. In this update, I will talk about what I consider to be like the most important changes that we went through in the last, let's say, 6 months, or since the last Docs update was given at the previous OpenStack summit. So to start with the highest level possible, this is our current mission statement for the documentation project. Basically says that our new role, and this has changed since the last OpenStack summit, our new role is to essentially provide guidance to other people who are interested in writing documentation for OpenStack. This guidance means that we will maintain publishing infrastructure, we'll maintain the documentation infrastructure in general. We will make sure that documents are publishable, that they are translatable. We will provide guidelines in terms of good style, ideas of how to structure content, things like that, with the goal that the OpenStack community as a whole produces documentation that is consistent, easy to navigate, findable, available, and so on. So to dive deeper into what exactly happened in the Pi cycle, I have to start with the fact that we lost many people who used to be core contributors to OpenStack documentation, especially to the core suite of OpenStack documentation. So these people unfortunately left the project. So what we were forced to do is that we rebuild the team basically from scratch with some of the previous team's core members still around. Most of them are gone, and we got new people on board. We got people from other OpenStack projects joining the documentation fund and helping us with overcoming the staffing issues that we run into. And with this new team on board, we started to think about what we should change in terms of our day-to-day activities and our goals. What we should be focusing on in the future, with the understanding that we have a very limited number of contributors that can, work on the official docs full time. And we came up with a plan in summer, earlier this year, to basically change ownership of most of the content that we used to maintain as the docs team, and that we migrate content that will be now owned by individual project teams from our OpenStack docs core suite to project repos. So this plan we call the documentation migration plan. It was a spec that was approved, and then we spent most of summer months basically moving content around and changing the structure, helping project teams with getting used to the new situation when they own the content and when they have a new, I believe, improved doc structure in their repo. So, this slide basically outlines the structure that I mentioned. So in each project repo, you have a doc directory, and underneath that, if you follow this spec, and all official OpenStack projects are now supposed to follow this, you can find a number of different categories for content that is now owned by the project teams. So those categories include installation instructions. By that I mean manual installations. That's with the goal of implementing or deploying a proof of concept cloud. Then there is developer documentation that now lives in the contributor subdirectory. That helps you get started with contributing code to the project. Then next is configuration. These are configuration options which will be automated thanks to new Sphinx extension, automatically generated at build time. CLI is also can also be automated, so that's another referential category that each project should provide. And then admin, user, or any other reference content should go into respective directory. So this is the common structure that's easily findable because all projects now follow the same URL scheme. So if you go, for example, if you wanna navigate to the Nova admin guide, you just go to docs.openstack.org/ the name of the project being Nova. Then series, because these documents are versioned, so for example Pike, and then /admin, right? And this applies to every official OpenStack project that migrated to the new structure. Another big update and change since the last summit is our new retention policy. So we agreed to stop deleting outdated content or unsupported content for end-of-life releases, starting with Mitaka. So our plan, which is now a work in progress, is to bring back Mitaka content and leave the content on the dockside server publicly available to everybody. With the understanding that we will not be providing any updates to the content. So the content stays there. It can be consumed by users, but we will not provide any updates. We will not fix any bugs because this content is no longer supported by the community. Also, as we don't really have resources to provide those updates, we feel like we need to send a clear message about this. Now, for the future plans, the team met at the Denver PTG in September to do like a brainstorming session when we ask ourselves like what we want to achieve in the next 2 cycles, so approximately 1 year from now, and what do we consider to be a success when we get to that goal. And we came out with like a team vision document that basically outlines 4 areas of focus for us. And again, this is like a vision. This is like these are like big ideas that we might want to implement. I mean, not all of them right now. It might be something that might be continuous effort. But these are the areas that we feel are like most important to the team and the community as a whole. So the first one is use cases. So basically, we would like to help the teams and the people who write the content, whether these are developers or documentation writers or other community members. We would like them to to provide them assistance with redesigning the content in a way that we don't just describe features, that we don't just write like documentation about what feature A does, but we focus on the actual user needs. So this requires to define, to do a bit of documentation planning before we can move to the writing phase. And this planning part should involve basically thinking about, brainstorming about on the project level and also on the community level, brainstorming about the common use cases that your users face and that you want to cover in your docs. It might involve using templates, it might involve doing like documentation planning sessions. And yeah, as I said, the goal is to make the documentation actually more usable, more to the point. Then setting expectations is another area where we feel like we would like to upgrade or let's say make the docs more important in the community, get more positive feedback on it, spread the word about it, and that's a lot about communications. Related to is content visibility. So basically, our plan is to improve search results, to do a better job in indexing, to do some SEO magic with the doc site and other content-related resources that are provided by the community, such as the ask.openstack.org site. We plan to look into how to better integrate these resources together. So where, for example, the user asks a question on the asks.openstack.org site, they could be offered with a bunch of links to related content on the doc site and the other way around. So better integrate with existing resources that are offered on the openstack.org domain. And the last area is making sure that we get new members onboarded. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean that we want these people to join the documentation team. They can join the project teams and work on content there. But we would like to do this as a, let's say, coordinated effort. We would like to be more active in the existing OpenStack events, talk to people, let them know about the content gaps or about the areas that we feel like needs most help. Help them understand that it is up to volunteers at the end to help get the job done. So we set some specific numbers in the team vision document that I want to mention here, but you can read more in the document linked from this site if you are interested. About feedback in general, and this relates to any content that's provided on the docs.openstack.org site. We use the same channels that we used to use before. It's just that with the content moved around, if you want to file a bug, this bug should be filed against the correct component. Now we offer links on the documentation pages that directs you in the right component actually. So you shouldn't need to worry about it. Just that you know that documentation bugs no longer go into a single Launchpad product that used to be OpenStack menus mostly, but it's now almost everything is now in project repos. Should also say that there are still guides that are like big single documents that we still live in the core documentations within the OpenStack menus. That includes documents such as HA guide, and they will very likely continue to live in this repo as separate documents. So there are special cases which also need help and more people to keep the content updated. But as I said, most of the content is now in project repos, and that's where bugs should be filed. Now, as for day-to-day communication, you can join mailing lists if you want to talk to us. We use 2 mailing lists currently. The team mailing list is OpenStack-docs. We might retire that soon, so the best way to start discussion about documentation-related stuff on the general level is to send an email to OpenStack-dev mailing list. And IRC, that's the way the OpenStack community operates is that we use IRC a lot to solve problems quickly. So we are on Freenode, we use the OpenStack-doc channel. So if you want to talk to us in real time, join the IRC channel. Now, we have a document that basically guides you through the first steps of contributing content to OpenStack. And that, again, is relevant both to the core suite as well as to project docs. And this document lives in that address. It's called Documentation Contributor Guide. The first chapter is the quick start that you might want to have a look at. And there are other chapters in the guide that dive deeper into how we do stuff. We try to document everything, and sometimes documentation writers are not best at documenting the documentation process, but we try to. We do our best anyway. So yeah, that's like the ultimate book that you should read before sending your first patch or even before filing a bug. Yeah, so that's about the major changes that we went through. So now it's time for questions. Any questions? Yes? So guidelines for like project teams?
Yeah.
So guidelines for project teams should live in a single place, and that should be the doc contribution guide for general guidelines. Now we would like every project to follow the same guidelines.
Right, so like Doug was mailing the dev list about the header for Newton and stuff like that. Is that documented somewhere so we can go through our docs and make sure
Sorry, I didn't catch the question about what?
Doug Hellman mailed about. I did. So you've been emailing the dev list about marking the Newton docs.
You mean the headers to indicate
Yeah.
like how far out of date things are and what level of support different
Yes.
versions have? Yeah, that we haven't built that yet. So Jimmy's working on that.
Okay.
When that's done, then
Then
it
we'll
will
get
come
more
with
on-
instructions for activating. Yeah.
Sweet.
All right, yeah, actually, yeah. Thanks for asking that, because I think I didn't mention it, that it's the update retention policy is not just about sending a message that this content is unsupported, but we also want to clearly show it on the site itself with a badge, right? But when we are at it, actually the question is, like, why don't we also identify content that's supported, right? So you could have like a red badge for unsupported content and green badge for supported content, something like that. Anything that helps the user, identify the status of content is a good way forward. So yeah, that's something that's still in the scope of the documentation project. So we try to drive that effort, and now people have been busy with the summit, but I believe that after the summit, we'll have more time to look into the actual implementation of that batch and other updates related to unsupported content. So if you don't have any other questions, then I think we can close this. And before that, I should mention that we have 2 more docs-related sessions scheduled for tomorrow. So tomorrow's morning at 9 a.m. there will be a docs onboarding session. So that's the place where you want to go if you are just interested in finding out what does it take to maybe submit your first batch or choose the right project to contribute to. So docs onboarding session, it will be shared with the translation/internationalization project. And then there is another session, it's not run by me, it's actually about release notes. And it's also in the morning, I believe. So you're welcome to join those sessions, and thank you.